the Food Justice Committee for Occupy Des Moines. Occupy Des Moines kind of redirected itself and broke off into a couple groups. We wanted to really start addressing food justice in Iowa, in our country, and worldwide, globally. As we got together and we started discussing all of the different platforms and different ways that we could express ourselves in this group, we started looking at the World Food Prize as an example of this corporate global takeover. So we did come from Occupy Des Moines. We do meet here at the Catholic Worker. We have a lot of Catholic Worker participants. We hope that all activists from all places will come out and join us. Norman Borlaug felt that that there should be like a World Food Nobel Peace Prize, and that's kind of like what the World Food Prize was initially formed as, and it still continues to be today. Norman was very active in inciting the Green Revolution in India, which really did feed hungry people. This isn't what we're arguing. Absolutely, the World Food Prize does award people for producing food. It does not, however, award people for producing healthy food and producing food for people who need it. A lot of the times the awards will be focused on high yields, high productions, and rather than quality productions, and rather than yields that will continue to produce high yields. So a lot of times, because the World Food Prize is so dependent on corporate agriculture and corporate domination of the food supply, it oftentimes forgets the people who can't A, afford the food, B, afford to continue small farming, sustainable agriculture ventures. Not only their land grabbed from them by big corporations, but in addition to that, all of the food is then exported out of the country rather than dispersed within the country, within typically third world countries. Corporate ag isn't feeding hungry people and keeping hungry people healthy and helping to put hungry people back on land and helping to hungry people to produce their own food. Really what it's doing is it's taking jobs away, because corporate ag is primarily the foundation of corporate ag is through machinery and input and reliance upon fertilizers and irrigation, chemicals. And all these things we argue are not helping feed the world's hungry. And it's taking land from people who don't have any other ability to hold on to it because they're so poor and impoverished in the first place, taking land from these people, exploiting them, kicking them off of it, and then sending all of the food to the countries who can afford to buy it for big prices. So
the agribusiness and the corporations that are the big movers and financial backers of many of these programs that are working in Africa and around the world in the poor countries are using GMO seeds. And of course there's a very big question on the health and the safety of consuming GMO seeds and anything grown from that. Secondly, there's a huge land grab going on in Africa right now. And when these large corporations and businesses acquire large amounts of land, they're not growing foods that people eat. They're growing huge monocrops of corn and soybeans, and particularly corn, so that can be sold for biofuels. So it's not, in the big picture, it's unsafe for people to eat what they're planting, and the food grown is, in many cases, going to areas in the world that have nothing to do with feeding the poor. Not to mention the fact that GMO seeds, which is what they're using in most cases, are contaminating the natural seeds of the rest of the world. So that, for example, in Mexico, we have 1,800 different varieties of corn. Wonderful corn that's been planted for thousands of years, full of protein, very strong, very resisting all sorts of drought and pesticides, bugs. GMO corn is starting to show up. And it's going to contaminate those wonderful seeds that have been a great gift to humanity over thousands of years. And we don't even know if GMO seeds are healthy.
Why do we even eat? Why do we work the land? And it's to nourish ourselves. We're so focused on pleasure. And so we've just succumbed to using all of these additives for taste and quick food because it's pleasurable, and we don't understand that what we take in affects every part of our body. It totally forms our brain function and our emotions. And so we take in GMOs and they create toxicity in our body, and we have bad brain health, and we're depressed, and we're schizophrenic. And we don't make the connection because we're too unhealthy to even think in big concepts like that. And for our future generations, I mean, we're not going to be able to get over this unless we really take a stand and get some healthy people to get strong enough to say, like,
another problem is the government. USDA, when it came time for them to approve the first introduction of Monsanto, particularly GMO seeds, in 1996, the USDA ignored thousands of their own scientists' memos and emails, which they've just came to light because of the Information Act, warning against the dangers and calling for longer studies about GMO foods. And because of the Monsanto and agribusiness influence in the government, the USDA and the Food and Drug Administration, whose leader now is a former vice president of Monsanto, their lead lawyer, thank you, Mr. Various Presidents, for that, approved over the objections of their own scientists. So it is very frustrating for those of us who don't have input and influence in Washington, D.C.
We aren't eating to nourish ourselves, and there's a reason, and they don't want us to know that. The government doesn't want us to know that. Big corporations don't want us to know that, and that's why they've infiltrated the government. And we've got Monsanto sitting on boards of USDA and FDA, and we've got Tom Vilsack appointed by President Obama, and these are all pro-biotech people. And I think that, like, one of the groups that we're working with right now is Food and Water Watch, and they're running a tough campaign to try to get genetically engineered foods labeled here in Iowa. That right there alone, I think, will spark interest by the public, because right now we're so clouded and we're so myopic in our thinking that we don't even think outside the box, because nobody's even talking about it in the media. Nobody's even talking about it.
And say, what is a GMO seed? Nobody knows what it is. And Monsanto and their friends have so much money that they can publicize things and give their foods, and corn is in so many products that we eat, a positive, healthy appearance through their advertising. So a lot of it's been kept from the public, a lot of dangers.
The problems is, I feel, is it ties back into the USDA. The USDA and the FDA leave it in the hands of these big corporations to do their own, do their own research, and then submit that research to the USDA. And the USDA says, well, if you say it's okay, we say it's okay. There's no substantial research that's been done on this, and it's been avoided at all costs. And the research that has been done is very skeptical. I mean, I'm very skeptical of the reasons that they've been done and who it's been funded by, because primarily it's by the Rockefeller Foundation, and it's by Monsanto, and it's by Syngenta, and by all these big corporations, and these are the people pumping the money in and saying, you know what, we're seeing it's okay. So
we're the only country in the world that does not label GMO. China labels them. Everybody, all the countries in Europe label their food with GMO foods. The United States is the only company that doesn't label GMO food. And 90% of the people in America want it to be labeled. Monsanto and their friends are spending $30 million to advertise against Proposition 37 in California, which will be voted on November 6th, to convince people that it will increase their food prices for the year. That's their main argument. Why are they covering up the fact that we're eating GMO foods? First of all, that's the main question. And the NGOs, we have raised probably around 5 million versus 30 million. So hopefully the people in California will see through their arguments and vote in favor of Proposition 37, which is very important. You're taking a plant and putting an organism into the plant, so you're mixing plants and animals. So it's never been done before, and it's forced into the cell, the gene. And you ask about what are the dangers, physical dangers. Americans are some of the sickest people in the world. and our incidence of stomach diseases, allergies, autism, all these diabetes, and by the way, corn syrup has been shown to enhance the ability to gain weight, have skyrocketed in this country in the last 20 years since GMO seeds, or however many years that is, 15 years since GMO seeds have been introduced. So it's very serious. It's particularly Jeffrey Smith's movie Genetic Roulette interviews a number of pediatricians, and they will see their patients come in, have a food allergy, be developing a food allergy, take them off GMO foods, and they get better immediately. So it's very obvious that it's bad for our health. It's a very serious situation. And we have the power, the people have the power to change it, but they've got to pay attention to it.
I think that food labeling is the first step to doing that, and getting the people's power and the government on board to have those food labeling, because that is commonly the first step into to a country saying we don't want it here anymore. We don't want this GMO food here anymore. Because once people have the ability to choose what kind of food they want, then they also have the ability and the capability to go out and research it. Like, what is the difference? Why would it matter? Because right now I've read recently that Monsanto is now genetically modifying engineering foods to taste better, so that we don't know the difference between a good a homegrown tomato and one that they've modified. That's horrifying. You know what I mean? So it's them doing that says to me that's clear that they don't want these foods labeled and they don't want us to know the difference, because they want to keep making a profit despite the fact that it's killing us.
This makes me think, here in Iowa we have so much farming going on, and we have, what did you say, 48th worst water in the U.S. in terms of states. We really need to start getting back to small family farms and kicking out these factory farms and growing our own food. I mean, this campaign is important, but we need to also just take our food supply into our own hands. Because
holding vigils in front of the World Food Prize building and demonstrations at the Capitol building the night they award the World Food Prize, which would be Thursday, October 18th. And people, we urge and ask people to join us at our vigils in front of the World Food Prize building and turn out with signs and just their presence to show support for what we want to happen in this world, and that is GMO labeling and more emphasis on healthy, natural foods.
Several different aspects. One large aspect of our campaign is education, and another aspect of our campaign is just ritualistic vigils and presence. A third aspect coming up in October is direct action and civil disobedience. So on October 17th at the World Food Prize building, come out for that. Be there for support. Be there to engage in civil disobedience. Be there for both. And then also on the 18th, we'll be, as Sharon said, at the Capitol on the 18th when the World Food Prize actually delivers their award. And we will be encouraging people to come out and protest, engage in direct action, engage in civil disobedience, let the people up at the State House know that we're not going to take it anymore.
With the election coming up, to make sure that anybody that they vote for has a position on GMO foods, and that they can at least find out how their candidates are thinking on this issue, because the power is in the hands of the politicians. And until we get the right people in office in the government to carry through what our feelings and our ideas are about this, our food supply, we're really quite powerless to get much done. So this next election is important. We have to express ourselves. www.occupytheworldfoodprize.com. And all our scheduling and links and a lot of information on that website can be found. So urge people to participate. Please help us.